Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's morning here. I'm just so confused about the time zones, so I have to just keep checking. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How are you, Eduardo? Are you in London?
I am in Buenos Aires. I'm
Buenos
heading
Aires.
back to London tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. Teaching this semester?
Yes,
Yeah.
full course.
Okay, hopefully we are ready now. I don't know if you can see just one second. I will be following the slides, but also the paper that you might have received in advance. So firstly, I'm going to focus on the use of artificial intelligence within the public administration. And then secondly, I will be shifting also on the Iure Condendo approach on the possibility to use artificial intelligence as a tax predictive justice tool. As we all know, with remarkable foresights as early as the 70s and 80s, that were already anticipations of the concerns raised today by those who believe that the indiscriminate and widespread collation of personal data by public authorities, combined with the use of modern technologies, give rise to a digital panopticon, and more specifically to the establishment of a public power that sees everyone without being seen. Those concerns arose for at least two reasons. Firstly, because of broad categories of taxpayers, the possibilities of using non-digital methods in managing their relations with tax authorities has gradually diminished through, of course, a massive digitalization laws, especially in tax laws, basically obliging taxpayers to use several models and to predict also the taxpayers' behaviors. And secondly, because the tax authority is now able to exploit the vast trove of data through risk analysis methodologies. So based on statistical processing and automated procedures, that tax authorities right now are able to do also with the use of AI systems. When I start to introduce now the discussion of AI system, basically we also referring to the previous topic that I appreciate a lot. We discuss either by traditional AI systems, which basically refer more to the statistical academia. So basically classification and regression of data. And then we have a complete new world, which is the generative and so the neural AI. So an artificial intelligence that it's not based on a deterministic approach, but more on a probabilistic one. Up to date, there is a vivid debate among tax scholars, either in Italy and throughout the globe, on the pervasiveness of AI systems. And in tax law, how can we use it? Either to promote compliance by streamlining bureaucracy, or support the fight against tax evasion of abuse of law. And lastly, as a predictive justice tool in tax disputes, which still appears to be projected in a more distant future. But there are already some academic studies going towards this path. However, as every system, legal system has to question, we need to balance the principle of effectiveness of the public administration, also in terms of efficiency and reduction of costs. And on the other side, the taxpayers' rights. It is always feasible to have an AI system even by and giving up taxpayers' rights. Yes, but we will see where some counter actions might be taken into account. Within the Italian legal framework, we do not have. So first of all, I wanted to also give. I already gave some explanations about this slide. So on the tax assessments activities, basically it is the main activity of the tax authorities. And some might be, let's say, predictable in the terms of interpretation. Some others might be less predictable, and I'm referring to more open legal concepts such as anti-economic transactions, relevance and congruence of cost, but also the fair market value, because what it is considered fair and market value, it can be in a specific geographic context and maybe in a specific in a specific day. But then we have to think, like, what if the biggest assumption on using AI tools is that the legal calculation process is objective. But what if we move into a data set which is composed by millions of case law judgments, which sometimes also they are in contradiction one to each other. And in this idea of objective, of the objectivity of law, of course, it is easy to recall the Max Weber theory, but also on the Italian side, the book of Natalino Irti, Un diritto incalcolabile. Going to the notional framework, in Italy, we don't have a definition of artificial intelligence yet. There is an initiative on the Italian government. Right now, it's under a parliamentary approval, and basically refers, so it's not law yet, but it refers and recalls the European Union AI Act, so regulation number 2024-1689. And so an AI system is a machine-based system that is designed to operate with varying levels of autonomy and that may exhibit adaptiveness after deployment, and that for explicit or implicit objectives infers from the input it receives how to generate outputs such as predictions, content, recommendations, or decisions that can influence physical or virtual environments. So going to the European Union legal framework, basically the European Union decided to adopt, maybe with questionable speed, because it was the first area or region or country to move towards writing down a legal framework, but it already gave a definition. Plus, as we can see from studying the regulation, it has basically a classification into several systems according to their risk levels. So they can be prohibited, so their level is completely unacceptable of risk. For example, in this case, there is the social scoring, let's say, activity, or high risk activities, or completely or moderate or minimal risk AI systems. According to the classification, then there are some consequences. Therefore, the transparency of information or the human oversight has to be provided only in cases a high risk AI system is used. So can we consider up-to-date tax assessment activity a prohibited, a high risk, or an acceptable one? According to the AI Act, there are no specific indications on tax law. Only the only references on tax law, we can read them through the lines of basically the recitals at the beginning of the regulation, and some of these recitals, for example, that might have an impact on tax law, can be the recital 31st on social scoring. For example, if a social scoring system is used for giving, let's say, specific tax or social security contribution incentives, like, for example, the Dutch Siri case, also that Professor Greggi wrote about it, we might fall into a violation of recital 31st, because we would provide a social scoring for several taxpayers by allowing or not allowing a certain tax deduction or a social security contribution only if such person has passed the controls of the AI system. Then probably the most important ones where there is a specific mention of the tax authorities is Recital 59, where for administrative proceedings by tax and custom authorities, any use of AI system should not be classified as high risk. So that means that if tax authority uses an AI tool, can be the human oversight can be either let's say circumvented because it will not be mandatory by law. Then as we go through the predictive justice on recital 61, sorry, we have a specific prohibition of on the use of AI systems for the administration of justice and for the decision-making power of judges, which cannot be replaced by an artificial intelligence tool. So basically, the most important, let's say, threat might be the risks of taxpayer profiling, the use of AI in tax assessments and prevention of crimes, the relevance of a tax official within the tax assessment procedure, so the human oversight, and the predictive AI in tax trials. Shifting the discussion to the use by the Italian tax authority, right now the Italian tax authority use, besides the fact that it already has a lot of information through that databases, such as the public motor vehicle, the cadastral register, the naval register, and so on, and even information publicly available. There is a system called Vera, which is basically a probabilistic AI system on selecting the which might have a high risk of tax evasion or abuse of law. So the core of this entire tax control process is the identification of fiscal risk upon taxpayers. So, but it is relevant for taxpayers' rights, this activity, which is internal of the public administration. Up to date, no, because since it is internal, we do not have a notice of assessment, something that it goes outside to a notified back to a taxpayer, and so it could lead his or her rights. Basically, it's still an internal act, and the only problem there might be, it would be in connection of two principles of the Italian Constitution, which might be the principle of non-discrimination, which is equality principle, Article 3, and the ability to pay one, because only if the system focuses still on the same taxpayers that will be under control by the tax authorities, that might be then an issue of discriminations among taxpayers. In any case, this system was enacted also with a positive document issued by the Italian Data Protection Authority, which made a testing phase based on a representative random sample of population, and set out some rights that the tax authority should always follow and respect, such as the right to algorithmic intelligibility. So the Italian tax authority needs to collect feedback on the functioning of such systems, and under the perspective of tax law, such requirements need to be also assessed with the technical employers of the tax authority, or the principle of proportionality. So only the data used by the Italian tax authority can only be used only if those rights are not abused by the public administration, or the right not to be subject to a fully automated decision. But there are several other tools which fall under the definition of traditional AI systems, so more an identification and a simplified, let's say, a deterministic approach, such as the automated tax assessments, which basically controls only what the taxpayers have shown in its income tax return and the payments. An income estimator, which then is an estimation based on several areas of Italy and according to specific types of jobs or activities carried out to certain professionals. So if they declare a certain amount of money and there is a gap, a mismatch according to such estimators, then a tax assessment might be triggered. Or also the summary reliability indexes, still based on such probabilistic approaches. But still, those are traditional AI systems. The only generative AI system is then the Vera one, the one that we discussed before on the selection of the taxpayers, because it makes a probabilistic decision according to a certain criteria and parameters. Such taxpayers which are not shown by the Italian tax authority because there might be, of course, a risk of circumvention. So it is let's say a secret activity. Then the only generative one is an internal act of the probability of a certain taxpayer that is evading taxes or not. The recent Italian tax reform has brought into discussion some new tools, because also by the general principles around the tax reform stressed a lot the use of the risk analysis, digital technologies, and artificial intelligence solutions were written down in the law. And what was the outcome of it? First of all, we had a specific rule now on taxpayers' data protection, which before we didn't have at all, so we needed to go through the general legislation such as GDPR. Then a chatbot to filter the tax ruling request in specific cases, the so-called simplified consultation, and a 2-year preventive income tax agreement. Starting on the second one, the chatbot, basically such chatbot which has not been enacted yet. If you are a taxpayer with a simplified accounting regime, so it means earning less than 400,000 euros per year, and you would like to submit a tax ruling request to the Italian tax authority, starting from when the Minister of Finance will enact this chatbot, such taxpayers will need to firstly prompt a specific and then ask a specific question on their case to this chatbot, which the data set is represented only by the laws, the applicable legislation, and the previous tax authorities' guidelines of the previous year. So no case law here is involved. And if such chatbot is not able to give you a proper response, then we'll tell the taxpayer to go through the proper tax ruling, which will be then addressed to the competent tax authority, and a tax official will take that for the response to the tax ruling. But there are also some rules which can be the legal basis for a tax predictive justice implementation, such as the previous case law compliance, which basically now an Italian tax judge, if receives an appeal, a tax appeal against a tax assessment notice, which is clearly not founded or clearly founded might decide with a simplified recall of the legal precedent within then 7 days after the discussion. That of course will help to lower the number of tax cases, which is pretty high. According to the last percentages of the Italian Supreme Court, let's say more than 50% of the cases up to date in front of the Supreme Court are tax law cases. So the need also to use AI tools is quite current, and we need to find a way to reduce the number of tax litigations. But right now we focused a little bit on the positive aspects related to the public administration, but taking into account the principles that actually should be also considered as limits on the use by the tax administration, the use of artificial intelligence by the tax administration. There are several procedures which basically start from two main ones: the principle of adversarial procedure, and in this one we are considering only the administrative phase, so not the judiciary or the tax trial one, and the principle of due process. Despite the Italian legislature intent to ensure the efficiency of public administration, there are some concerns of fundamental rights. Mostly the ones highlighted by tax academic are the opacity in the algorithmic decision making, making it difficult for taxpayers to understand how risk scores, for example, are assigned. Or then we will now see how the chatbot will give the response to small taxpayers, and if those are comprehensive for a person that does not have any knowledge. Because when we also discuss about natural language process, we also discuss about a very technical language, which is the tax law language. Will that be translated even more to let it be understood by the man of the street that might be use the chatbot of the Italian tax authority without going through, let's say, a lawyer or a person with the knowledge of that dictionary? Then there is also the exposure of sensitive or special category of data, the risk associated with taxpayer profiling, and the lack of human intervention. Indeed, on the lack of human intervention, before going towards the end of my presentation, I would like to recall the case of the Italian super bonus. Basically, there was this super deduction on incentivizing energy efficiency and anti-seismic work. As you all know, Italy is in a very seismic area, and there are many earthquakes. So the policymaker goal was actually to improve our energy efficiency building and keep our homes more safe, let's say. By giving 110% tax deduction. If you didn't have the money to pay such construction works, energy efficiency, you could have traded money with the tax credit and giving it to the general contractor making your works. Such a triangulation, because then the general contractor for making the works was asking loans to the banks, and then transferring again the tax deduction to the banks. This created, of course, some problems of tax frauds. How such tax frauds were detected? Firstly, by using an AI tool that identified certain risk profiles. For example, if there were the same data of the transfer of the same credit by the same people, or there were similar transfers in the days earlier of such taxpayers, etc. But they were no clear. These three types of let's say general guidelines. up to that, the taxpayer would have received a fully automated tax assessment by saying, according to our analysis, there might be some risk profiles of fraud in your case. And then taxpayers received only such notice without having a human being identified within the tax authority to ask for, and having basically the principle of adversarial procedure respected, and then with no procedure described. So this AI tool basically was able to detect many frauds. On the other hand, some let's say negative false emerged, and there were no procedure on who was liable to find the proper and a specific counterpart within the tax authority. Taxpayers had difficulties on that, and then of course could lead to potential infringements on the right of good administration, the right to have a fair trial, because of course if I can bring all the documents before in an administrative procedure, then of course we won't find ourselves in front of a tax court, before a tax court, and that of course will be with a positive impact on the economics for the public administration. Therefore, if what I wanted to then to say to conclude, that besides the adversarial procedures, there might be also some room to develop some predictive justice tool. However, what we have to think about before going into the analysis of an AI tool, testing it, etc., is about thinking about our data set. In Italy, before 2020, the digitalization of tax trials was not in place. So many judgments before that date were just written by hand. And starting from 2020, with the digitalization, now there is a proper legal database of all the merit courts, so the first two instances, and that could lead to an initial data set for assessing and developing an AI tool. But still, it is, I would say, it is still not an amount of a severe amount of judgment that consent us to test such system if we do not have let's say all the storage, or at least a proper amount of cases. Yes, I would like then to thank you all, and I will probably be in time right now. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francesco Castro, for your presentation. And now I invite Miranda Stewart to comment.
Thanks, Eduardo. I did create a couple of slides, so perhaps Francesco, if you take your slides off, I can share mine. It's just a few notes, but yeah, let me see if I can share. I'm not sure if I may. Oh, yeah, it looks like I can. So can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Alfredo, for hosting. Very nice to see people online, and great to know. I think you have a few people perhaps in the room. I'm sorry we could not be there in person. I would have appreciated being there. So this is a really interesting paper. I'm assuming it's just a portion of your doctorate, of course. So you have a lot of other material. So I won't make comments about, what else you could cover, because I'm sure that you are doing a wide range of other work. Certainly, I learned a lot. It's very interesting for me. I don't know a great deal about AI, so it's interesting for me to learn about the structure of the EU regs and Act, and the way that this is just being legislated now into Italian law and presumably other EU member states. So I really just have a few kind of questions or issues, and it's possible you direct these, you already deal with these elsewhere in your doctoral research, but perhaps you have an answer anyway. So one of the things that I always find very difficult when thinking about the AI, issues is how much of this is just about automation, digitalization, mass data sets, right? Access of the administration to data of all kinds. And it's not really algorithmic, and it's not, it's certainly not generative AI, as in, it really thinking further about it. So, or the system in some way kind of generating new reasoning. And maybe this doesn't matter, but I do always find it would be helpful to sort of try to distinguish between where the new developments are literally just digital or data or automation, online filing and so on, all these developments you identify, and where they could be called AI in accordance with either the legal definition, the EU definition, for example, or some broader concept of AI. Of course, some of the same issues arise, right? Whether we're talking about just digitalization, digital tax administration, automated tax administration, and whether we're talking about AI. And one of the things that your paper reveals or seems to show to me is that the recent developments, the EU development, the AI concern that we see in the public, and the issues that have arisen are leading to, I would say, improvements, right, in the tax administrative rules to protect taxpayer rights, even if this is not really AI, right? Like you need these better rules and administration and transparency, even just in a digital automated system. So you would think, in general, you would think digitalization is a good thing, right? This is a good thing for the system. It should improve administration on the whole. It should speed it up. Hopefully it improves compliance, makes it easier as well. Improves fairness because it can capture avoidance and evasion more easily. But of course, it needs to be constrained properly to protect taxpayer rights. So yeah, this is what I just said, that maybe I'm not reading it correctly. I don't know the full history, but it seems like these AI developments have led to these significant improvements and changes in tax administration and law in Italy. And is that correct? So that's a question for you. And also this idea of reporting the tax cases for this is a very recent development, it seems, to have all of this tax law decision-making made public. It's kind of surprising to me that this has really only just happened. It's a good development, right? To have this prompted, as you explain. It's not really about AI. It's just about making decision-making public. So that's all fine. Then a question about, again, I don't want to go into the definition of AI, but one question is a question for you, either for this paper or more broadly for the thesis. Do you think it matters which type of AI you're talking about in considering the government response? Like, does it matter legally? Like, it might matter legally because you have your EU definition you're going to adopt into the Italian law. But does it matter conceptually as well, or is it a matter of analyzing fairness, what type of AI we're talking about? So to try to be more precise about the specific issues that arise from probabilistic, from database, or from kind of generative AI. And it's very clear that problems are just automation and a very basic algorithm that is incorrect right? Like a formula that is incorrect can lead to really, really huge problems in administration. And we have this Australian example, robo-debt, which I'm not sure if you would have heard of. You could look it up. It's a very interesting story. The other main question that I have, or another thing I'm interested in, and I'm sure you have an answer for this, but it wasn't so obvious for me, is how does the right of review or contestation work? So, and I guess I have this question at a range of levels. So at the EU, in the EU framework, the Act, the regs on AI, you identify this obligation to inform the public or the people about the use of AI in a system. Is there an obligation for an affected individual to contest or request an investigation or contest the use of AI? Is there an obligation at the EU level? And then in Italy, is there an obligation or an opportunity at the national level? Presumably, if it happens in the tax context, the taxpayer can seek a review or appeal against the tax assessment, but they may not know that there was AI involved, right? And until later, that's your point about transparency. So is there a right of review and how does it work? And if there isn't, should there be one, of course, at these different levels? So do I have any other, these are just, sorry, these are a bit random thoughts. Like I found your discussion of the Vera system and the super bonus case is a very interesting example. So I like this idea of the algorithmic intelligibility, that we should be able to interpret what has been done or what is being done in the AI reasoning. I have the same question as before. How can we test intelligibility? What is the process for disputing, if you like, the way that the algorithm has been has operated or is operating? And on the super bonus case and any other examples that you have these false fraud reports. So obviously the algorithm is over inclusive, right? It's too broad. It's picking up too many taxpayers into the net. But the reason perhaps it's such a problem is not just the overbroad algorithm. It's also because I think you identify this. You have this 30-day period. You have this tax credit that needs to be utilized in a short period of time. So it would be interesting to tease out the elements of these examples that you have. Super bonus is one case that make this particularly problematic. Like, why is this particularly bad? You have not just the use of AI that is incorrect, it's combined with something else happening. Lots of participants involved, some short timing, cash flow problems, right? It's that combination that makes it really a problem. So that would be interesting, because then you would learn perhaps where do we really have to have more close oversight, or how can we better define the AI to avoid that sort of problem? Human in the loop. Sorry, I'm nearly finished, Eduardo. So again, I really like this. Obviously, this is an EU proposal. Again, my question is how is this human intervention defined? Or maybe it's not yet defined and we need more work on this. So in the tax context and in the Italian context more generally, do you get to appeal to this human? What if the AI is right, but someone is still faces hardship? Is there some discretion? And this accountability issue, are the tax authorities accountable for the AI errors? And this is a really important question. First of all, they have to correct it in general, and in particular cases, they may have to relieve tax, refund penalties, interest, and so on. But do they have to give compensation? And again, we have this robo-debt issue where the Social Security formula in Australia was incorrect, and it affected many thousands of people. So far, we have about $1 billion. Actually, it's more than $1 billion in settlement so far from the government to the individuals who were harmed. So do you have a right to compensation? Yeah, and I think that's finally the advantages. I think there probably are quite a lot of advantages, and in fact, potentially fixing human error as well. So that's all I have in terms of comments. You don't have to answer all of them, and I can send you the slides later anyway. But yeah, the two issues, I guess, specifically, are there particular issues with types of AI rather than just data digitalization, automation, and contestation, this issue of what are the processes? Thanks, Eduardo.
Miranda, thank you very much for your comments. Very thought-provoking. Francesco, would you like to answer to them?
Yes, I will give my best. I will start according to the recent, the first part of the recent developments. Yes, I confirm that there is a quite vivid debate, and the possibility of using AI systems is now being provided by the law. Maybe before it was still used, but not actually provided and written down. And nowadays it is. I agree with you on the necessity of giving clear definitions among the digitalization era that we are living into. Indeed, my let's say the compilative work on giving the different pieces of the puzzle, it made in a provocative way also to understand why that we have to have clear that one thing is the traditional AI, which is just a deterministic approach and the use of, let's say, of the human brain in a certain manner, basically, such as cross-checking information, or let's say some activities that might not be considered, let's say, with a high level and positive and with a high impact. And indeed, now the fact of trying to translate into rules specific procedures of the Italian tax authority also gives much more legal certainty on a sociological aspect, because taxpayers then would feel, let's say, more assured that they are, let's say, under control, even if some information cannot be provided by tax authorities due, of course, to the secrecy that covers some of their activities. On then the type of AI, it has many implications. The classification, either if those are used the traditional ones or the generative AI ones. Because in case of traditional AI, the right of adversarial procedure for the taxpayer, so the right to be heard before any decision of the tax authority, that always gives up to the principle of the good administration. So the Italian legislature says, if it is an automated tax assessment and you want to challenge it, you will go in court, because since it is an automated one, we cannot provide you with a tax official. Then the tax official needs to be paid, and of course there is a negative item in the balance sheet of the Italian enterprise, let's say, legal order. On the other hand, then the speed of the automated tax assessment prevails over the right of adversarial procedure. If we're talking about just the traditional AI system, so just cross-checking of information, you declared in your tax return that you would have paid 100, but according to the liquidation forms, you paid only 50. That if we only also put one tax official on reviewing this documentation, that of course would be not efficient in terms of the economics. And then so the taxpayer rights should be given up on the efficiency of the public administration. But if tax authority then uses an AI generative system, so it means let's say a tax official machine brain, let's say, because in that case you need to guarantee all the taxpayers' rights, also the right to present documents, observations before presenting them in front of the judge, because that could lead to a violation of his rights. So that, of course, is quite important. Also, the beginning of the evaluation to understand if the tax authority used a traditional AI one, because then you could give up the taxpayer rights. If not, you cannot give them up. Lastly, on the intelligibility, of course, we would need people that would also be tax lawyers, economists, plus also experts in the use of AI, which it's quite impossible due to the specialization that we might get through a lifetime. So some scholars have suggested, of course, to implement the body, so the tax officials of the tax authorities, also with people that have a deeper knowledge of the AI systems. But on the other hand, all the generative AI systems, as was previously discussed, those are all black box systems. Either also when I discussed with the academics within physics or engineering, they all tell, you might ask with other prompts what was the reasoning, but you cannot see the actual reasoning that was behind that decision. And that's why also us as human beings, we don't take decisions as in the deterministic approach, so in the traditional ones. So as having a box, okay, if so, yes or no, then gives a score. And then let's move to another issue and I give a score on that situation. It's not that straightforward, the human being method of and legal calculability. And also in general, the type of choice. It's not, you take into account several aspects, but then how one aspect prevails over the other, it is still a type of activity that we do in every decision that we take into account. And what I'm saying here, for example, it's not that I'm saying it, but it was referred to in this sociological professor of which is Harari, in the last book, Nexus, a brief history of the connection of how the connections are used by the human beings, so that also help us to understand how the AI system will and the neural networks will work. I don't know if I covered some things starting from the recent development, the type of AI and the intelligibility, and so the right of review. If then of course there is something more, I will be very happy to comment and also to keep you posted with the research.
Thank you very much, Francesco. We have 9 additional minutes for 1 or 2 questions. I wonder if there is a question from the floor. It could be the digital floor or the other floor, the real floor. Alfredo, do you have a question?
There is one in the floor.
Okay. Yes. May I ask you to Francesco?
Yes.
Exactly. May I ask you, Francesco, to go for
Grazie, Francesco. Thank you, Francesco, for your presentation. And sorry, I missed a huge part of it. But I just had 3 clarification questions to better understand your paper. So first, your recommendations, are you going for or against AI in taxation? Sorry, this I missed the point. The second question is, I'm an economist, not a lawyer, so there is something you said that was very interesting and I would love further clarification. You mentioned that if it is an automated system and the taxpayer has a problem that he should go to the court, with who it goes to the court if it is an automated system. And the third question was, when you mentioned AI, is it broadly or you were thinking, for instance, a specific developed AI for taxation in Italy, because this can also make the difference. For example, if it is a specific application for that, maybe the privacy control, the damages control can be better, or you are referring to broader AI tools that are already available. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these three questions. I would like to submit a fourth question. Probably you will not have time to answer them, but I think it's good for you to listen to the number of questions. Miranda, basically, if I understand her feedback correctly, focused on AI and taxpayers' right. I have a small question regarding AI and the extent to which AI could help to solve tax administration structural issues, such as the one, for example, we saw in the case of the CumEx case in Europe. So my suggestion, Francesco, would be not only to focus on cases emerging from Italy, but from a number of countries. Most of them are from Europe. So the suggestion would be to focus on CumEx scandal, in which, as you I'm sure know, it's a tax abuse case involving over 100 banks and involving more than 5,000 billion euros. So the question would be, the invitation would be to use this case study, the CumEx case study, in order to show to what extent AI could somehow help tax administration solve this type of structural issues. There is a book by Oxford University Press. It was written by Richard Collier, published 3 years ago, that is really illuminating on how this huge fraudulent system emerged. So that's my question and suggestion. I wonder if there is one final question. We have 6 minutes, so over to you, Francesco.
Thank you very much. Going firstly on if I'm against or pro, that of course is a personal opinion. I would say that I'm pro, but with the several we need to monitor the process. We need to monitor the process. It means that any type of artificial intelligence system needs to be tested. We need to provide also to some sandboxes in order to understand how it works. Recalling also what Professor Stewart said, within the European Union regulation, and I answer also to that question, the AI Act just focuses on regulating the internal market. Doesn't focus then much on the taxpayers' rights or on the public efficiency right of the states. Therefore, there is a lot to do, and also the sandboxes that the European Commission needs to also address at the end of the process will be very fundamental for the testing phase. So I would say I am pro, because we cannot slower or counteract something that we are experiencing. So such revolution after the industrial one, we are leading after 100 years the next big revolution, and of course we cannot hide behind the tree. And on the traditional and generative one, what I was saying is that if it is a more simplified artificial intelligence activity, so just cross-checking information, matching data, then the Italian legislator arrived to the point to sacrifice the taxpayers' rights for, let's say, a bigger aim, which is the efficiency of the public administration. So rather than hiring new employees within the tax authorities, let's buy a software, and for the easiest task, let's go with that. If we then need to also guarantee the right to an adversarial procedure, then the system would collapse, because we would save some money on this, but then we would spend it on the other hand. So that's the thing why we need to comprehend the traditional one and the new one, the generative AI. And And lastly, of course, I would like to thank Professor Baistrocchi for the tip, because definitely I will see what Collier wrote about and dive deep into European cases such as Cumex case, and then make some comparisons also between the European Union ones, which that definitely will give a higher level of on the research. So I will already took note, and I hope then also to keep you posted on that.
Miranda, I think you
Eduardo,
want to say?
yeah, just have a follow-up question that just occurred to me, given your example, Eduardo, about
Yes.
the European law case.
Yes.
Is the EU reg about AI, like, is there a proposal that this should there should be more use, I guess, of AI and digital methods for this cross-Europe enforcement, right? For these very big cases that involve cross-border, many, you know, potentially many taxpayers, many businesses. Did the EU give any attention to that issue of using AI actually in this regulation of the European market, whether it's tax or something else? It's
I'm
kind of
not
an
sure.
interesting question. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that is a very important question. My short answer is I don't know. What I know is that this case study on Cumex is the largest tax fraud in the history of the banking system in Europe. So I think it will be fantastic for you, Francesco, to either examine what the European Commission is doing on AI and this type of large fraudulent cases, or to make concrete suggestions to the European Commission by you. We are completing our slot. I would like to thank Francesco Castro from the University of Ferrara in Italy for his presentation and his wonderful project, and of course to thank Professor Stewart from the University of Melbourne for her wonderful feedback. Thank you so much. So now, without further ado, I invite Joanna Clary to be ready for her presentation on the issue of tax fairness. Joanna's paper is titled Mapping the International Tax Fairness Debate.